a shift, a change, a pop in your location. And below you spans a metropolis of Renaissance ilk. The city is palpably ancient in feeling, though people below toil in a variety of jobs, farming, manufacturing. You can't help but feel the austere presence dampening this city. Suburbs sprawl for many miles. To your southwest, a bridge of peculiar construction, obviously magical in origin, spans a great river suitably wide for a large number of ships. The bridge seems almost comprised of fiber-like tendrils of glass that catch the light in an iridescent hue. The center of the city is dominated by two key buildings. A black keep that stands towering above even the tallest of structures around it, and a great gray dioritic statue. The statue depicts an obviously noble king, a face worn with worry, or perhaps a face that has progressed past worry and found peace. The statue elicits a calming emotion upon you, while the black keep bestows upon you a sense of innate dread, a calling shriller than all the rest, reverberating somewhere from deep within.
The city's so bright, but that one building...
I would not tarry you watching it for much longer.
Oh, you must be Emers. The concierge told me that you'd be here to meet me.
Emers Lochingvyrr, a fellow traveler of worlds, in a way. Best not to tarry in dark places.
Of course not. We'll go back where we can get a good view of the whole city again.
I understand you are touring the place. Certainly we can get a view of the entirety of the city.
Can you tell me a bit about why the magic here is so different?
The magic here has structure. Structure in the form that cannot exactly be studied directly. Beyond the physical reality before you is a conceptual reality comprised of perceptions, energies, the collective conscience of the people. Magic stems from there. The power of the imagination is very palpable in this land. Those with enough will to take that collective conscience and bend it to a particular form, those progenitors of the classes, created a magical substructure within those conceptual realities. A system of rules, you can say, by which that all magic abides here. I imagine that your magical capabilities were registered to the system by joining with this world in some form, have added to its collective consciousness, whether you intended to or not.
I told the concierge I wouldn't disturb anything. Is that going to cause a problem?
One cannot tread through paths fertile and unbothered without leaving behind traces, but the traces of your footsteps will be minor at best. You should count yourself fortuitous. Getting a tri-blend class is a rare feat.
A tri-blend class?
Oh yes, there are the 16 common classes that are rather easy to attain. Those that have a bit more pull in the world beyond the physical and often find themselves accessing older and more lost forms of magic in the world. Blending classes, if you will.
I think my handler plays games in worlds like these, but she says that lots of people try to have, well, when they're imagining worlds, they try to make them so that magic is very dangerous and only an elite few have them, like it sounds like there is here. But ultimately, a bunch of people ends up with magical powers because everyone wants to be magical. So, I mean, if magic's so strong here, why doesn't everyone just use it?
Well, upon my last venture here, magic was but a seed, not yet blossomed into the wonderful collective force that it is now. But, to my understanding, before we got here, there was the time of antiquity. In this continent, that is. The magic works differently elsewhere. In Delmalen, the current age is the age of prosperity. Before this, there was the Malefic Wars, and before that, the age of antiquity. The age of antiquity was a great time. Many magic users were about. The streets were flooded in magical lights. Crafters were commonly casting spells of powerful natures. Vehicles and artifacts and items, the likes of which will not be seen for many a time, were created then. But with such generic access to magic came a lacking in the protections required to keep people safe. Feudal mage lords fought great wars. There was one individual. Started off as a common foot soldier in these mage wars, but accumulated power and knowledge and was particularly tenacious in the art of spellcraft. And by that I mean the literal crafting of spells, the creation of new magics inside that collective reality beyond our reality. That individual, she was somewhat unique. She eventually became known as the Maleficarnum, a collector of all the evils. To gain power, she ate the sins of the world and bolstered her own. In doing so, a great age of tyranny followed. It wasn't until the birthing of King Caius I and the rallying for rebellion out of the east of the continent that the Maleficarnum would finally be smote down. A covenant of dragons, men, elves, dwarves, all the like, unifying together against the evils of the continent, accumulated, incarnated into the Maleficarnum, and sealed away by the Compact of Black. Compact of Black is a living spell, a seal upon the Maleficarnum, intended to allow her evil to bleed out rather than concentrate slowly, or any force that restricted her completely would eventually be overcome. She is a progenitor of evil, by which I mean she creates evil. You tie on the lid to a bottle, shake it, and build up pressure and build up pressure. If that cap is too tight, does not bleed off that pressure, will eventually burst.
I see. So in that case, magic is probably highly regulated today, right?
Not for the reasons you're thinking. The vileness of the Maleficarnum bled over into that collective conscience, contaminated it. Enough negativity in the world and even magic will become a bit more evil. And that is the unfortunate truth of what happened on Del Malay. The ending of the Malefic Wars was a joyful time, but the realization that there would be no return to antiquity the centuries before the Maleficarnum was a melancholy realization. The Compact of Black is tied to 100 individuals directly and 300 sub-individuals. The King Caius I established the Blackguard Order, an order of 100 magic users who are permanently tied to the Compact of Black, their positions inherited by the next in line, those sub-individuals, the trainees, the recruits.
Oh, is that the man in this statue here then?
That is King Caius I indeed. Those not tied to the Compact of Black act as a siphon to the powers underneath it. A release, faster than anticipated, faster than designed. Just as one hole starts getting established, the force that comes out will widen it and widen. That is why magic is regulated.
So, how does the Blackguard do all this? I mean, it sounded like you said there's only 100 of them, or like 300 of them?
100 active service members of a level beyond 10 or equivalent. About 300 trainees at any given time. They patrol the entirety of the continent, and you can quite imagine that they are understaffed incredibly. 100 persons is not sufficient for policing the entirety of the continent of all evils. It is thus that the Blackguard are focused on crimes of a magical variety. The illegal creation of spells, the illegal advancement and attainment of power. And that is a job they do very well.
I see.
However, as I mentioned, there is a constant bleed from the Compact of Black. Blackguard will never fully succeed in stamping out the growth of magic in Delmalin. Their best scenario is to curb its increase.
How do, the common people feel about that?
The vast majority of common people regard the Blackguard as heroes. There are cultists that worship the Maleficarnum, believing that she alone can return the continent to a time of antiquity, a time where no one was bound by the restrictions of reality. The Blackguard, in the common eyes folk, police the Maleficar. It's common knowledge that the Maleficarnum is bad news. Thus, for the majority of folks, Blackguard are a heroic people. Now, in more recent times, under King Redless the Ruthless, there is a heretical obsession amongst the Blackguard to stamp out the Maleficar and limit magic further. The effects are that magical races are being incarcerated into Dragon's Landing at a rate previously unseen. Incarcerated is a strong word, but that's how they would describe it. Giving free housing and free food amongst the banks of some of the most prestigious neighborhoods in Dragon's Landing. But you cram enough people in manors, and even manors will start feeling claustrophobic.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. But this does seem like it's a difficult issue, seeing as if you have magical people out, then the Maleficarnum is just going to get stronger, right?
You have the gist of it, yes. The unfortunate truth is because magic is a collective conscience, everyone is magical. Some races more obviously interact with magic.
But then there was that bridge earlier. I mean, that seemed magical, and I mean, it was beautiful.
Zaelin's bridge. You won't have a mind like Zaelin for a very long time. Zaelin was the Grand Mage, the first Grand Mage of Caius I, of Elven descent. He was alive the many thousands of years ago, during the time of antiquity. Elves lived longer back then, and the oldest of elves still tie themselves to proximal to antiquity, back before their lifespan started to shorten. Zaelin knew aspects, tricks, schemes around some of the conventional rules. He was able to create great constructs without damaging the compact.
Are there any others who are capable of doing stuff like this still, or at least people who would want to try?
In the individuals that could would have their best interests in remaining hidden. Oh, look, I'm sure they're about somewhere if you rummage about in the dark recesses of secrecy. But who knows? Maybe a particularly skilled magical lawyer might change everything about magic. But surely you don't want to spend all your time looking at one city when there are 3 countries on the continent. 4 if you include the illegal one.
The illegal one?
Most don't speak of it.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't immediately ask about the illegal one. Tell me about the other cities, though.
Well, in Bondor, you have the capital of Greenheart, and Dunan is a collection of intellectual provinces, each one specializing in a various form. The commonly referred to capital of Dunan is Logos.
Well, I really appreciate you having taken me around today, but it is getting a little late for me. I've been traveling all this time, you know?
Well, perhaps upon your next visit, we'll take a closer look at the other countries.
I would love that. Thank you so much. That history lesson was incredible, and you explained everything so clearly, even though, you know, I'm not from here. I feel like I understand everything very well. Next time, I guess, we'll have to start with Entheart, did you say?
My apologies. Greenheart is its older name. But you are correct. The current people call it Entheart.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I will settle in for the night. I suppose I should ask where I should go, where it won't cause more disturbances.
You intend to stay within the world. Well, for now. Perhaps you can slip through the warp in the west.
The warp in the west?
Oh, and if you're going off-world, be sure to tip the concierge.
Oh, of course, I will.
You did bring the appropriate currency of souls,
What?
Yes?
I have to pay him in souls?
Let me loan you this. It has a soul in it. The concierge will be satisfied with that.
Okay.
But next time, bring your own. I don't have many of those.
Emu, hi, thank you. So when's the Averil D&D sourcebook coming out for realsies?
Follow me on a future Patreon if you can travel through time in a non-linear manner.
Oh my Christ, okay. Final thoughts, tell the audience something cool.
Averil is the campaign world I'm designing that explicitly builds in all the quirks of the D&D system into the lore somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And elsewhere, we didn't even talk about it because Emyre was quite focused on Delmalen and trying to weasel spoilers for her D&D campaign that she's currently playing in. Each of the other countries actually operates by a different edition of D&D, or Pathfinder on some of them.
Ooh.
Now you can quite imagine how interesting it'll be to border between Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder 2.
I mean, I kind of hinted at this earlier on with my Arlister's comment on handlers, but I really like that you basically managed to create a low magic campaign in a world that's high magic and make it like rare and difficult to access because you made it evil. I mean, like, that's obviously massively simplifying the thing that you just explained earlier, but because you made gaining more class levels like an objectively bad thing, pretty much, it makes us a lot less likely to want lots of class levels. And so then we're all like, what if we just stayed at like level 0 for as long as possible?
There's a certain encouragement in that,
So.
and something I don't tell the players is that there's a mathematical function that determines the probability at each session that the Maleficarnum will release,
Oh, good.
and that function does take into the count the party's level collectively.
Oh, good.
Eventually, probability dictates that eventually the Maleficarnum will hit out, but right now that chance is sub 0.1%. It is more unlikely than rolling 2 nat ones in a row.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good reference point. All right. Well, thank you, Emu, once again. I love you.
Bye.
Bye.